That may be the greatest catch I've ever seen in my life.
Okay, my dudes, we are going to be going through, we are going to be looking at our most recent Flock Patreon startup. Now, we are going to be kind of reviewing this as a practice for the one that we have getting kicked off on the 7th of this month. And no, please do not DM me asking if you can get in that league. It is already full. I promise you we're going to have a lot more Flock Patreon startups this offseason though. So just be on the lookout over there on Patreon for more announcements. So yeah, I will put out the disclaimer that there were so many trades in this league. So as I show up the screenshots, I'm not going to be blurring out any of the names, I'm sure, because everybody supporting the show on Patreon, everybody in this draft was a part of the flock. They're fine with their names being shown. So yeah, let's just completely overlook that. And also guys, if you have not already, for whatever reason, I don't understand why, subscribe to the channel. Drop a like on the video. It helps us out so much. And more importantly, honestly, because y'all know I love hearing your opinions. If you see something when I show a screenshot of the draft on this roster and you think that there's a pick that really stands out, go to the comment section. Let me know the player. Let me know the pick. And most importantly, let me know a small explanation. Don't just say, Mason, Daniel Jones was a fantastic pick in the 8th. Tell me Daniel Jones was a fantastic pick in the 8th. And then give me a small reason on why. But that should be it. Let's dive into this. And the first player we are going to be talking about is going to be very boring, but honestly, I want to bring him up here. It's going to be Sam Darnold. Okay, so we go through, and yes, of course, this is a Superflex league. I know that a lot of people on Patreon get annoyed, but I'm only playing in Superflex leagues. Every Patreon league I play in, and I refuse to play in a one quarterback league, they're all going to be Superflex. And anyway, here with Sam Darnold, he goes at the 9-11. The players that go directly ahead of him are Jameis Winston, Brandon Cooks, Rondell Moore, Matt Ryan, Will Fuller, Terrace Marshall, Michael Pittman, Deebo Samuel, Carson Wentz, and Dallas Goedert. Now, I think that this is a fantastic pick for many reasons. And to be completely honest, over the past few weeks, I have continued to get higher and higher on Sam Darnold in Dynasty. Now, there are a few reasons for this. Reason A is obviously, I mean, we have seen how bad of a coach Adam Gase is. We saw what happened with Ryan Tannehill going over to Tennessee. And of course, you can't just assume that same thing is going to be happening with Sam Darnold because there are so many other variables in play here. But that is something that you have to point out. That is something we have to understand. And another big thing with Sam Darnold is he is hilariously young. I mean, you pull it up right now. Sam Darnold is 24 years old. Now, let's go and let's look at another quarterback that a lot of people are valuing very highly, someone that went in the first round of this draft class, Joe Burrow. They are the same age. Sam Darnold and Joe Burrow are the same age, and of course, you can't end everything there. But if we pull up Sam Darnold one more time, just to look at what he's actually done over the past few years with his stats, and this is one of the main reasons I've honestly changed my mind a little bit here with Sam Darnold, and that is I was ignorant to just naturally see Sam Darnold and go, okay, this guy doesn't look like he can run. But no, if you actually pull it up, Sam Darnold is a sneaky good rusher. I mean, right here in 2020, in not that many games, in only 12 games, he actually has over 200 rushing yards, which is notable because if you can pick up 300 rushing yards at the quarterback position, that is a drastic difference. I mean, the 200 yards that he was able to pick up through 12 games is equivalent to about, just say, 5 to 6 passing touchdowns that you are getting added on. So that is going to be a small bonus with Sam Darnold. But the number one reason I'm viewing him as a massive value is the situation that he is in this upcoming year. He is playing in an offense that has DJ Moore, Robbie Anderson, and most importantly, Christian McCaffrey. I mean, Kyle Allen, I think we can all agree, is a quarterback that I don't want to say shouldn't be on a roster, but he should never start an NFL game. And the supporting cast here in Carolina actually propped him up slightly, given the fact that you had Christian McCaffrey as someone that's going to generate so many yards after the catch. The same thing here with DJ Moore. You have those elite weapons, and I mean, you have Matt Rule, you have Joe Brady, two coaches that looked extremely competent year one this past season, going through and providing a ton of production, getting 3 wide receiver 3s in fantasy with Teddy Bridgewater at quarterback. So you go through and you look at everything for Sam Darnold. I think I would prefer having Sam Darnold right now over Jameis Winston, given the fact that Taysom Hill could steal some usage in the red zone. I would prefer him easily over Carson Wentz. I know that's crazy to say, But the thing with Carson Wentz here is I'm looking at him as a quarterback that is in a worse situation with worse options, a quarterback that probably is not going to be giving you anything on the ground, a quarterback that also the Indianapolis Colts, I don't know how many times we have to talk about this, but if things go awry, I mean, if this is a team that looks like they have no playoff aspirations by the time we get halfway through the year, that's a team that's actively encouraged to bench Carson Wentz. As, I mean, think about it. If you're the Colts, you get halfway through the season, you're, I don't want to say the worst team in the division because the Houston Texans are there, but you are one of the worst teams in the conferences, which I know would be a massive stretch for the Colts, given the fact that this is a team with an elite offensive line. This is a team with a very good coach and a competent defense. But if Carson Wentz is as bad as he was last year, which is entirely possible, I don't think anybody can say with 100% confidence that Carson Wentz is going to be a completely changed man. While yes, it is, I don't want to say likely, but there's a chance. It's not 100% guaranteed. So there's a scenario where Carson Wentz is benched halfway through the season. I would prefer Sam Darnold, who I think is going to be more productive on a points per game basis. So yeah, Darnold, I just love the value there. Okay. So now our next player, we actually brought him up in a video that comes out tomorrow on the main fantasy football channel. But Laviska Shenault, I mean, I am all over Laviska Shenault. What is crazy is Laviska Shenault right now is either cheaper or about the same price in Dynasty than he is in high stakes redraft leagues, which is absurd to see. I mean, Laviska Shenault goes in the middle of the 8th round in this draft. Now, I ended up taking DJ Chark just a few picks before, and we have been on record saying, I think these are two players that should be going close to back-to-back. We have said that all offseason now, and finally people are starting to understand that they need to be moving Laviska Shenault up draft boards. But it is ridiculous to see how many targets are leaving this Jacksonville Jaguars offense, that you have Trevor Lawrence coming in, and we know that Laviska and DJ Chark are easily going to be the wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2 combo in there. I think it's more so going to be a wide receiver 1A, wide receiver 1B situation. Laviska Shenault has the frame, he has the athleticism, he had the collegiate production to make him a fantastic prospect, and I mean, he is going in this draft at a ridiculous mark of the wide receiver 36. I mean, he is being drafted behind Trey Sermon, Robert Woods. Robert Woods, I can agree with. I understand if you're a contending team, draft Robert Woods, but he's being drafted behind Elijah Moore, Michael Carter. I don't understand that at all. I actually have him ranked as our wide receiver 28 in our Dynasty rankings over there on Patreon, and I just love that value with Laviska. Now, our next player is going to be someone that I just took in that high-stakes Patreon league, T. Higgins. My man, T. Higgins, another player that I think needs to rise up draft boards drastically. Another year 2 wide receiver that we have said this. We just made a video with T. Higgins, but he and Joe Burrow, whenever they were both starting in games together, propped up T. Higgins to be a top 10 wide receiver on a points per game basis over a 7-week sample his rookie season. That is significant. This isn't me looking at just 3 weeks and going, oh, well, T. Higgins was a top 10 wide receiver with Joe Burrow. No, this is a 7-week sample where both T. Higgins and Joe Burrow started games. T. Higgins was a top 10 wide receiver in points per game as a rookie at 21 years old. And yes, you have Jamar Chase coming in. And Jamar Chase is eventually going to be the wide receiver 1 there. But this is a scenario that could be very similar to what you had in 2019 with Tampa, with both Mike Evans, who prototypes to be like T. Higgins, and Chris Godwin, who prototypes to be like Jamar Chase. I mean, that team had a very bad defense. Well, not that bad of a defense. Obviously, Jameis Winston put them in very difficult situations where the defense let up a ton of points. But, I mean, the passing volume was absurd. Now, you're finding the same thing here with Cincinnati, where Cincinnati going to have one of the worst defenses in the NFL. They're going to have a gunslinging quarterback. I think easily Cincinnati could be top 5 in the NFL in passing attempts, and that leads T. Higgins to be a massive value here. I mean, here he goes as the wide receiver 23, which is a pretty high mark, but he is still going in the same tier of a Chase Claypool, a Deontay Johnson, a Jalen Waddle. He goes right behind Baker Mayfield. Don't get me started about Baker Mayfield. He goes behind Courtland Sutton. I mean, we have him ranked as the wide receiver 17 in Dynasty. We have him as a top 20 wide receiver. He's going as the wide receiver 25 in high stakes redraft formats. So if he's going as the wide receiver 25 in redraft, he should be going a lot higher than the wide receiver 23 in Dynasty. So now let's go a little bit further down the board. Let's stick it at the wide receiver position. Let's go with Michael Gallup. Michael Gallup here being drafted behind Tyler Boyd, Corey Davis, Hollywood Brown. I don't understand it. With Michael Gallup, this is someone that we also recently made a video on talking about how he went out and he averaged more targets per game and receiving yards per game than Amari Cooper in 2019. I love Amari. I think that we all understand that by now, but Michael Gallup, also an upcoming free agent. He is going to be a free agent after this year. So we're looking at a scenario where Michael Gallup, I'm going to be having him ranked as a wide receiver 3 in redraft leagues. And then after this year, you can easily see him going to a situation where maybe Cleveland goes, you know what, instead of paying Odell Beckham Jr. $15 million a year, instead of paying Jarvis Landry $15 million a year, they have essentially no dead cap on the roster. Let's get rid of them. Let's save $30 million. Let's bring in Chris Godwin and Michael Gallup for a lesser price. And all of a sudden, he's the clear wide receiver 2 on a team. I think that can easily be seen with a player like Michael Gallup. And there are so many landing spots, maybe with Amari Cooper's contract situation where he doesn't have that much dead cap. If Amari Cooper is slightly disappointing this year, they decide to retain Michael Gallup as the wide receiver 2 behind CeeDee Lamb. They decide to move on from Amari Cooper. There are so many avenues for Michael Gallup to be a fantastic value here. I mean, if you go over to Patreon right now, Michael Gallup, my wide receiver 38 in Dynasty, and he was drafted as the wide receiver 50 here. I just think that is way, way, way too low. And now a player that I have been historically too low on, but honestly, I think in this draft, he went in a reasonable range. I think he went in a good range, is Chris Carson. Okay, so the majority of Dynasty drafts you are going to find, I mean, Chris Carson's going to be a 5th round pick, given the fact that we have seen the production over the past few years and people are running back hungry. And y'all know I am always of the opinion that when those running backs get on their second deals, when those running backs are veterans and you don't necessarily have that much long-term guaranteed money, I am always looking to get out from that player, because as soon as they have a down year, I mean, their dynasty value is going to collapse. Just look at Melvin Gordon, not Melvin Gordon this offseason, but Melvin Gordon last offseason, where, yeah, I mean, he was going to be a feature down running back for Denver. Yet he had a down year the year before. He didn't have that much guaranteed money on his contract, so he gets moved over to Denver, and all of a sudden, his dynasty value plummets. So that's always a concern when you're talking about these veteran running backs. But here, Chris Carson at the 705, I think is a completely fair price point, especially if you scroll up a little bit and you see where other running backs are going in this draft. I mean, some other veteran running backs, a Derrick Henry at the 210 and Ezekiel Elliott at the 302. I think neither one of those players are anywhere near as appealing as what you had with Chris Carson at the 705, getting a 4-round difference. I mean, the best way to look at this is by going, okay, Ezekiel Elliott here went at the 302, and in the same range, you had actually, no, this is a much better way to look at it. Derrick Henry went at the 210, Justin Jefferson went at the 212. Okay, so would you have to make that decision between having Derrick Henry or Justin Jefferson? And then say you choose Derrick Henry, and then we get down to the 7th round, 2 picks before Chris Carson goes. And instead of being able to go with the running back there because you need a wide receiver, you go with Kenny Golladay. So you come away with that scenario with both Derrick Henry and Kenny Golladay. Or if you were in the 2nd round, would you have preferred to draft a Justin Jefferson there, and then in the 7th round come through and draft a Chris Carson? So would you rather have Chris Carson and Justin Jefferson in Dynasty, or would you rather have Kenny Golladay and Derrick Henry? I think the answer, at least in my opinion, it's clear. I would much prefer having Justin Jefferson and Chris Carson as the veteran running back. Maybe I am on an island there, so please let me know what y'all are thinking down in the comment section below. And our last player we are going to be talking about is going to be A.J. Dillon, another player that we just got done talking about over there for the main video that comes out tomorrow on the Fantasy Football channel. But with A.J. Dillon, he goes at the 1004, and this is ridiculous because a player that goes 1 pick ahead of him is Ronald Jones. Now, for this upcoming year, I mean, if you ask me who I'd prefer between Ronald Jones and A.J. Dillon, given the upside that each player has, I would say, oh man, it's so close, neck and neck. I would have very, very little to say in terms of choosing one of them for 2022. But if we are talking about long-term, A.J. Dillon, a running back that was just drafted in the 2nd round of last year's draft, A.J. Dillon, a player that is running behind the best offensive line in football. I mean, at least a top 3 offensive line unit in football. A.J. Dillon, a running back that is a little bit bigger, actually, than Derrick Henry if you look at his BMI. And at the same time, literally, I mean, he ran a faster 40-yard dash at the NFL Combine. It was like by 0.01, so it's essentially the same, but he has the same size adjusted athleticism of Derrick Henry. He is a second-year player, and he is going after Ronald Jones, a player that we have actually never seen used in the receiving game at the NFL level before, and it doesn't matter what happens, he's never going to get used that way, has no contract for next season as well. I mean, A.J. Dillon at the 10.04, that's a fantastic value if you're going to be going running back. I'm unsure if we would go running back in that scenario. Maybe we would prefer getting a wide receiver or a quarterback in that range. But regardless, if you're deciding to go running back, I mean, there are so many worse ways than you can do to get A.J. Dillon at the 10.04. I think that's fantastic value. He goes before Mike Davis actually at the 10.06. And I know a lot of people would prefer Mike Davis. A lot of people would prefer James Robinson. And I know a lot of people are going to be screaming going, Mason, you like A.J. Dillon more than James Robinson? Yes, I do like A.J. Dillon more than James Robinson. If you look at their college profiles, if you look at the offenses they're playing in, I mean, A.J. Dillon, a fantastic value here. But thank you, my dudes. I really hope y'all enjoyed this video. Of course, go down there, drop a like. And if you saw any screenshots, any names on the screen that stood out to you as great values in this draft, please go down there, drop that comment with a short explanation on why you thought they were such a good value. And yeah, that should be it. I hope y'all enjoyed this video. And on the 7th, we are going to be having that live stream come out. That should be tomorrow. So please be on the lookout for that. Thank you so much for everyone joining the flock in Will, Wesley, Ethan, Sabres, Jonah, Austin, Andrew, Doug, Brandon, and Adam. Thank you so much, my dudes.